We first are acting out of that emotionally triggered place where we just simply respond based on that autonomic response, that protective mechanism. Our drive to protect ourselves can inherently, again, be for our betterment or our detriment, better or worse. Becomes a judgment, but in that regard, we can make it a powerful judgment. We can make it a truly evolutionary judgment. In its regard, in its core, these scripts are limiting our potential or influencing our decisions based on that script, based on, conscious consent or conscious discernment. Are we engaging in something that we're truly stepping back and evaluating?
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Create Magic at Work. Today, I am speaking with Jeffrey Besecker. His podcast that he runs is called The Light Inside. And Jeffrey is a seer, a healer, and a guide who also helps other people understand how unconscious behaviors influence your life. And I'm going to stretch this out and others with our unconscious behaviors. In this regard, he is both a coach and a mentor, but first and foremost, an educator. A teacher. I love that. That speaks to the fourfold way of Dr. Angeles Arian, the healer, the warrior, the visionary, the teacher. Those are all different ways you can be a leader. Jeffrey is a holistic behavioral coach who influences the balance of our conscious existence. Sounds super like we're going deep today on Create Magic at Work. So buckle up. So if you're in your car and you're driving, or if you're at home cleaning or doing laundry or something, grab a coffee, grab a drink, and take a breath, because we're going to talk about some concepts that will stretch you today. So Jeffrey, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Amy, first I want to say thank you for having me here today and allowing me to join you in this journey together. And I'm so grateful we get this opportunity to kind of connect and share with our audience today, our community. We're going to go deep, but hopefully we keep it accessible.
Yes, that's the goal today. Yeah, we want everyone listening to walk away with something that they can, at least one thing that they can remember that makes their life better and other lives better in work and at home. Yeah. So can you tell everyone a little bit more about yourself, just like a quick, deep and brief background?
We'll keep it quick and to the point.
I think the most pertinent or relevant to this audience would be, they would be interested in, what your business background is. Obviously, you're a coach and a mentor now, but I know you ran a few restaurants in the past, so you're very familiar with management and different things like that. Maybe speak to what led you to this path today.
We'll keep it quick and concise. Over the course of my storied career, I've served in various leadership roles in brand development, music, hospitality, and now as a holistic behavior coach. Through the course of all of my leadership roles, one key aspect is always stepped to the forefront. That's that aspect of creating partnerships and creating that kind of visionary approach to understand how we grow and change as individuals, how we connect and communicate, how we form a whole as a community. Now I'm looking at that role from all of that experience in guiding others. So in my practice as a behavior coach, I'm guiding others toward uncovering the unconscious patterns that are disconnecting us, because it's an us and not a we, they, or them, from our conscious wholesomeness, bringing together that sense of community and oneness in everything that we're doing, being, and becoming.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a journey. So when you talk about the unconscious ego scripts that we live with. So, okay, so let me back this up a little bit. In spiritual intelligence, which is going beyond EQ, the elevated leadership skills that are the tools that Create Magic at Work uses and philosophies in the workplace. From an SQ lens, ego is defined as the place within you, or the thing that rises up when you feel fear, when you feel like you need to defend yourself. And that's okay, right? Like, we can feel
Ego is
fear.
also
We can
the
feel
same
like
thing
we
that,
need to defend ourselves.
the ego is also the same thing that
No, yeah,
inspires us
I've
to
got a
get out of
question.
bed every morning. It's just
Exactly, right?
simply
So
that
that's exactly
filter
where I
that
was going.
forms our perspectives.
Yeah.
From our core, we're one energetic body, you, me, everything, leading together throughout life, quantum leadership. Yet at times we experience behavior patterns that disconnect us from this unified whole. Sometimes that pattern is simply that filter of ego. That filter of ego serves our highest good, yet sometimes we subjectively reject it. It's just simply filtering, hopefully, toward our highest good as a collective, not as a separate unity, but as a unified unity, bringing us together.
One of the highest level skill set of being able to operate from your higher self, that place within you that just feels very calm. You have inner wisdom and compassion that you're operating from. You seek guidance from that place. One of the, I guess we would just call it like the level 5, if you're on 0 to 5, the level 5 area of that is when you are able to put your ego in service to your higher self. And it's interesting that you mentioned getting out of bed, because that sounds so easy, but it almost could be like level 5, right? Like, you're putting your ego in service to your higher self. You're getting out of bed to do something, to make a difference, to send a ripple effect out. So I just wanted to note that. But I want to ask you, because you talk about these automatic ego scripts that we are programmed with. So can you elaborate on that with a specific example of what you mean by that?
Sure. One way this occurs is through subconscious scripts, or those reactions or stories we form about how we experience life. That's at its core the simplest we can put it. The stories we form, the stories we tell, the stories we share, the stories we judge and evaluate each other by. When we say stories connect, whose story's connecting? Is it our inner story, or is it the projected story? At its core, they're all the same story, because there's never a disconnect. So that's going broad. Let's start by defining what a subconscious, I'll get this right, a subconscious script is. Subconscious scripts are the stories or feedback loops we tell ourselves that separate us. They build walls and barriers, either holding things in or keeping things out. Either it's a way we protect ourselves or a way we project ourselves. And I'm going to pause on that. The way we protect ourselves or the way we project ourselves. It's an either or scenario in that case, creating that polarization, that resistance, that energetic exchange that either is flowing, becomes a struggle, prevents the flow of energy, or becomes that resistance that pushes back against. There are defensive devices a lot of times. I say a lot of times because they're, again, subconscious scripts and subconscious conditioning just form pattern and habit. Are we in the habit of creating a resistive energy, or are we in the habit of creating a pattern that creates flow? Do we create a story that works with the universe and with creation and with consciousness? Or do we create a story that separates and divides us? Do we create a story that builds walls? Do we create a story that limits our potential? Do we create a story that inhibits connection with others and keeps others out, or keeps us from expressing our true selves? True selves being, back to that model, our highest conscious soul being. We're
Mm-hmm.
just these energized skin bags that are here in this present moment. But is that our continued now?
Yeah, you have me thinking about the way that we all operate in our day. You talk about these large concepts, and I think of these simple things when you're saying it for some reason in our conversation.
It's interesting, too, that we call that a large concept. That itself becomes a subconscious script about what we've learned about our own understanding, our own learning, our own view. When we think about how we're schooled, how we're educated, how we're taught in the social environment, in our schooling institutions, and even in our interactions day to day, we're taught to just recognize patterns. Yet somehow, when we're shown a new pattern, we create that script that it's difficult, that it's hard, that it's large. Why? Are we afraid of the learning process? Do we fear judgment in ourselves? Do we fear our perception of others, of how they're going to receive us? Is the subconscious script that when I was younger, I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel accepted. Those are very raw, vulnerable moments in our experience. Those are very traumatic events sometimes.
So the question would be, if someone's operating with this, I think of someone, I was trying to break it down to a simple example. I guess I won't say simple anymore, because what's simple and what's large, right? That you just pointed out. But I was trying to break it down to an example.
That's valuable, though. Sometimes it is monumental.
Yeah. Let's say someone's moving through traffic. This is my story. And they have all these automatic ego scripts that they're programmed with. This person cut me off. This person in front of me, why are they, or the person behind me, why are they riding too close to my car? And then there's just this whole like energy in the car that's just like, what happened? This person's in my way, and da, 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 da. And then I think of another person that has the exact same experience, but their experience is, oh my gosh, this person in front of me might be late for work, and let me let them go ahead because they seem like they're in a rush. Or, oh, this person's not that close behind me, they're fine, everything's great. Like, and it's all these stories that you sit in your car and tell yourself as you move through traffic. And it literally is an example of what you just talked about, the scripts that we create. We're creating our own reality. The one person is completely jacked up in anger or in frustration, and the other person is in flow, where it's just like, hey, it's cool. Like, I'm going to get where I'm going to get, and let me help some other people along the way, or send them some good energy along the way. So that was the example that flashed when you were sharing that, is these scripts that we're programmed with are automatic, and we want to wake up and recognize what script we're telling ourselves throughout the day, because it's really powerful when we can recreate the script. Like, either way, you can change your reality by just changing that story in the car, right? So my question to you, after saying all of that, is what are some ways that if somebody has a lot of these automatic ego scripts, maybe in the workplace, oh, my boss is out to get me, oh, everybody's against me, or I keep getting all of these emails nitpicking me, or this company is talking, like maybe we're helping somebody in a toxic work environment, right? How then they want to be the change. What are some ways that they can help with these automatic ego scripts that might be coming up, help themselves?
We first are acting out of that emotionally triggered place where we just simply respond based on that autonomic response, that protective mechanism. Our drive to protect ourselves can inherently, again, be for our betterment or our detriment, better, worse. Becomes a judgment, but in that regard, we can make it a powerful judgment. We can make it a truly evolutionary judgment. In its regard, in its core, these scripts are limiting our potential or influencing our decisions based on that script based on, conscious consent or conscious discernment. Are we engaging in something that we're truly stepping back and evaluating? Or are we simply rushing ahead to that action driven by that emotional urge, that instant response? Sometimes, that trigger just bounces up. And when we recognize those moments, did I take a moment to take a breath? Did I take a moment to consider? Did I take a moment to realize why I'm reacting in this way? It's ultimately that programmed reaction or patterned habit that we go to. When I accept the fact that anger, when expressed in a healthy manner, can be a healthy, beneficial emotion, we form that stigma that it's not the anger itself that we form the action out of. It's not the anger that inherently is working against us. It's the actions and reactions we form as a result. Healthy anger allows us to see injustice. If we see a child experiencing injustice, if we see, a social pattern where there's a group that's being marginalized, stigmatized, or overlooked, that healthy anger triggers in us that realization that there's an injustice going on. It's how we express that anger that then becomes our pathway out. It was something I battled with in my own history. Growing up in patterns of unhealthy anger where the expression of it was then stigmatized, where the expression of it became that kind of deconstructive force, where you lash out and yell at somebody, where you scream and throw things, where you demean another. The expression is where our attention and lesson lies. It's not that we were angry. What happens a lot of times then is we have this cavalcade, this kind of compounding effect of emotions where now I've expressed the anger in a way that's deconstructive. And now I start to own shame. I start to judge myself. I start to devalue myself. That was my experience. It wasn't that the anger was inherently good or bad. It was in the expression and the patterns I learned about that. As an adult, I have to choke on that a little bit sometimes still, because I realize where I've come from, where I've evolved to, and how I can change those scripts. I felt very diminutive in that. I was told, anger is who you are. Anger is in our family history. But anger is wrong, and so there's that battle inside that you create on these scripts. Well, I must be wrong. I'm wrong for having emotions. I'm wrong for expressing myself, become the ultimate expression of that, which further fueled that cycle. Now I feel an inward injustice. Now I feel stifled. Now I feel repressed. Was the story I told myself because I didn't know how to express anger in a healthy way. Changing that script reduces that shame. Still pops up sometimes, but it allows you to change that narrative. How do I express anger when I feel it?
Okay. What would be a healthy way for someone to express anger?
First thing is to feel it. We're taught and conditioned by and large throughout a society that says anger is bad. It's one messaging we get. That becomes a subscript. We store that back in our implicit memory. And every time we experience anything that might trigger an anger response in our emotional reactions, our emotional interactions, natural cycles of emotion, be that. Every emotion is valid. Do we realize that? Do we reinforce that and say, no, I got to stifle this back. I'm not allowed to feel this because I've been conditioned to believe it's inherently bad. Shifting that perspective, simply to say, anger is natural. Feel it, think it, process it, hopefully, so you take a moment to stop. What happens? Our defense mechanisms go up. Internally, heart rate increases, nervous system shuts down, it switches us at the base of our skull from our logical brain into our survival brain. We won't go too deep in detailing which brain is what, but there's different mechanisms. We often think of the mind as a whole, but it's just like a work environment. We have the logic department. Over here, they solve problems, they figure things out, they design meaning. Over here is our warrior department, where their goal is to kind of fight and protect us most of the time. There's also the goal that they're the protector nurturer. It's a role we often forget that area of the brain performs. It inspires us. It empowers us. If we're allowed to move through those cycles, sometimes we block it and we're automatically throwing everything into that defense mode. Fight, 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 fight. We don't hear the cheerleader inside that says, but I'm also cheering for your best interest. I'm also rooting for the logic brain in our prefrontal cortex to now kick in gear and allow it to access its wonder and awe and brilliance.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that perspective. I'm thinking about the concept of psychological safety, because that's a big topic in the workplace. What is psychological safety, and can we have it within an organization? What does that look like? How does that help our teams become more innovative and creative, and help them, not be afraid to make a mistake? So can you speak a little bit about the role psychological safety plays in going beyond the ego, and why a leader would want to do that?
So let's take it right to its basic. And we get a lot of mixed messages on this again. We get a lot of cultural conditioning. We get a lot of sometimes misguided information where we simply don't have the full data. Some of that is our own evolution as a species. Psychological safety, there again, is just that ability to feel open and vulnerable, to be able to express your soul. We're conditioned within a group or environment where our souls can communicate vulnerably when we express ourselves, where we take interpersonal risks. That's, you and I have a shared obligation to each other through that risk. We have a responsibility to each other. We have that responsibility from an intrinsic level to look out for our best good. It's a community effort. The moment we move into that resistance, we create those control struggles. We create those emotional dramas a lot of times. Our ability to co-regulate is a group effort. Our energies merge and mingle. Yet sometimes we project our emotions, and it's our emotions. He meant to do this. Very often we project that notion. He, she, they meant to do this. This was their intention. He must be mad at me. She must be upset. Yet we don't stop and say, I'm holding space for you. Please share with me your feelings. Sometimes just please share that silence together, because there's a lot of times where we're not fully in touch with our own cycle and process of feeling, our own cycle of emotionality.
Yeah, really good. That's been a theme this season so far on season 5 of Create Magic at Work. It's just been bubbling up with everyone, is a high level of presence in the way that you sit with someone and, like you just said, hold space with them, and without judgment, and just let things unfold, right? Without a need to jump in and fix or do something. Especially when it comes to what one might perceive as difficult conversations or conflict resolution or things like that. I am curious, because of all of the work that you do, and I would love to know what your view on quantum leadership is, and also why would somebody even want to go from being what a servant leader is maybe to a quantum leader?
Let's first consider the nature of consciousness in this regard. And we can observe how everything that exists at its core exists as energy. I relate it to quantum physics, which correlates with the 12 universal laws and energy by providing a framework to understand the interconnectedness of all matter, energy, and consciousness. You are an energy, I am an energy, yet it is all the same energy of consciousness. Aligning with holistic principles provides the foundation for these laws, the 12 spiritual laws that are the core of your quantum leadership program. The basic laws of all being, and there again, using law is somewhat subjective in listing it, but, from that aspect, we're never truly separated from one another. We're never truly separated from all of the energy in the universe. We look at how they serve us as a community of one, a unified energy. Awareness, vision, and value. Spontaneity inspires creativity. Holism, seeing each other as the same energy, the same feeling being. Interdependence, relying on each other because we realize we each have our gifts and assets. We each also sometimes have our own, dare I say, weakness or our own skill sets that we have yet to develop. I say yet to develop because we can always look at that aspect of development. Humility, being able to simply say, I do have an ego and sometimes it filters. I do have an ego and sometimes it's harsh. I do have an ego and sometimes it judges and forms these subconscious scripts that may not be some version of truism. Some version of truism allows us to say, one perspective may not always be the definitive truth. The unity of opposites also coming into play in the universal laws. We're able to see different perspectives. We're able to realize and recognize our soul's inherent differences. That allows us to reframe our perspectives. It allows us also to step into vulnerable questioning. I don't understand this, or I don't know, can be very empowering if we don't allow the subscript that says, I'm taking away my power. I'm not worthy of this. I don't know. This becomes difficult. Things can be challenging. We can reach a point where we reach kind of our physical limits within a healthy regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. What comes up for me throughout our entire conversation today is what script, this is kind of my takeaway. There's many, but this is what's coming up right now. What am I telling myself? What's the story I'm telling myself? What's the script I'm writing for my life? And is that true? And what if I rewrote that script in an even more positive, more enlightening way as I operate throughout my day? That's one. The other thing is with expressing emotion as there are clouds coming through our day, throughout our day, shifting and moving. How do I decide what to say and how to say it? That would be a check-in with my higher self. How can I be both honest and kind in a situation? Especially when it's a hard truth. How can I stay honest and kind? How can I hold both of those in the same space? That kind of came up for me when you were talking about the anger and not shoving anger away, because when we shove that down, obviously it comes out later in an explosion, literally or figuratively, right?
Till we learn to transmute it. Yes.
So thank you for sharing all of that wisdom.
It's a skill,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing
it's
all
like
that wisdom.
everything else.
Yeah.
We learn to ride a bike. We fall off sometimes. Do we get up and beat ourselves up when we fall off? Sometimes we do. Sometimes we have outside forces or, that voice of consciousness that originates somewhere else. That wonder of consciousness
Yep.
that sometimes it's just our own voice echoing in our heads. But do we form that ability to say, let's pause first? First, how do I want this story to play? Because we can shift that. And what we reinforce, selective reinforcement. If we repeat a mantra, I am good, you are beautiful, I am kind, reinforces that belief also. Just like if we say, I'm not worthy until I prove myself enough, until I achieve enough. I'm nothing but a failure. We brace that to our soul, literally, and becomes the energy we live. It becomes the energy we manifest. And if we only focus that lens on tuning in to see that thing, and it very realistically becomes our energetic vision. I'm not going to stray too far down the path of how our 5 basic senses we acknowledge are secondary senses to our energetic sense. We're starting to discover, through scientific exploration. We see, feel, hear everything first with that energetic soul. What is the truth of the matter here? What truth do I want to create? Automatically then creates that reality in a lot of regards. And we're finding out more and more every day just how powerful that force is throughout life, throughout our experience, throughout all of consciousness.
Yeah. I have a lot more to say in a second on all of that. Thank you for sharing your wisdom in all of that regard. I'm going to pull a card for you and the listeners right now from my journal prompt card deck that you can get on my website, createmagicatwork.net. It's a deck of 33 cards that is designed for your workplace and career. An affirmation will come up for us. One's coming out right now. So, Jeffrey, we got courage.
Courage.
I'm just flashing it for you to see. One of the card says courage. And this is for everyone listening and for us as well. I am open to adventure and I leave space for the unimaginable to appear in my life. Wow. That's a really great affirmation for today. I'm open to adventure and I leave space for the unimaginable to appear in my life. Jeffrey, what would you say to someone that is closing themselves off and afraid to try something new?
Everything imaginable is everything that occurs. And everything you do imagine will occur. So simply be mindful of what you're imagining. I think it's pretty to the point.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm sitting there.
What you think you become becomes that motto, and there again, if you think it more, you reinforce it. Selective reinforce creates those neural pathways, it also creates our response within our emotional response in the central nervous system. It also contributes to our intuition throughout that whole chain of cycle.
Yeah.
Everything is an embodied experience. There's no one more important aspect of our material being. The brain, mind, heart, body, soul, all forms one unity. And the moment we start to divide that is the moment that we form those resistances. We form those disconnects. We have to just simply open ourselves with courage and confidence, vulnerability at the root of that. We have to create that accepting space to lovingly welcome any potential that might become. If we reinforce positive potentials, we tend to manifest positive benefits and outcomes. It doesn't also discount that we're interacting with other energies. It's not to stigmatize those energies. It's not to divide those energies. It's not to reject them. It's to simply look at the possibility and say, how does this energy interact together and come to synergy? How does it create that unity and oneness?
Yeah, I think the overall theme of our conversation today has been really, what is my worldview, which is one of the skills in spiritual intelligence. Am I aware of my worldview? Am I aware of others' worldviews? Am I aware of how I see the world? And can I challenge that within myself if it's not serving me? So thank you for sharing all of that and getting everyone to think a little bit deeper. If people want to connect with you and get a hold of you, where can they reach out to you to connect?
Plain and simple, we're sending everybody through our website at www.thelightinside.us.
Perfect. Yeah. And I also, you're pretty active on LinkedIn. That's how we connected. So
yes.
Check out Jeffrey on LinkedIn.
We interact
as well. And
on all
we'll put
the
all the links in the show notes. Yeah.
We do all the things.
Yeah. Jeffrey, thank you so much for being a guest on the Create Magic at Work podcast and for sharing some magic with everyone today. We appreciate you.
Amy,
thank you.
I want to thank you for opening your heart and your soul to allow this message to come through today, to allow the energy of oneness to truly shine. Namaste. The light in you, the light in me,
Namaste.
The light in all of us acknowledges that light together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Amy here. I am so excited to share this news with you. If you've been a longtime listener of the podcast, or even if you're new, you probably know that I weave spiritual intelligence through all of the episodes of Create Magic at Work. And we often talk about where you are at with making wise and compassionate decisions, what it looks like to be a wise and effective change agent. How do I put my ego aside and operate from my higher self? And if you've ever been curious as to what level you're sitting at in your life in those skills, I have some great news for you. I have loaded the SQ21 assessment on the Create Magic at Work website. This is something that only my private clients have access to in a coaching partnership with me. However, I have decided to give everyone access to the SQ21 assessment at a generous price, a small fee. You can take the assessment at createmagicatwork.net/shop, and you will get a printout that you can take with you the rest of your life as to where you're sitting, what level you're sitting at in the 21 skills of spiritual intelligence. This is an amazing opportunity. I encourage you to take advantage of it. Again, if you've ever been listening to all of the past episodes like, I wonder where I sit at making wise and compassionate decisions, or I wonder where I sit at being able to access my higher self, explore that curiosity and go to the website and take the assessment. I will also have that link dropped in the show notes so it's easily accessible to you here after the episode. And again, if you have any questions or if you just want to have a chat with me, I'm always available for a complimentary 30-minute coffee chat, so you can explore that as well. But get over to the website, take that assessment, and give yourself the gift of something that you can take with you for the rest of your life. Sending magic to you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.